and a couple of reasons to think why Kevin Stefanski and this Browns offense are trending in the right direction and reversed course early already to do what some of the top teams tend to do. So we will get to plenty of that coming up with the reaction from Thursday Night Football and the Browns win. But today we mentioned someone getting ready to lose their cool, and it was a third quarter to forget for the Boston Celtics, and apparently a post-game locker room full of loud noises in this one.
Wait, you forgot the most important thing. Do you know what today is?
Oh, it's Too Damn Friday, Chiney.
It's Too Damn Friday.
Maybe that's what the Celtics were getting a head start on. Maybe they realized it was too lit in the locker room.
They looked past Thursday, and they were looking to happier days, better days. Yeah, it's funny because you hear from the reports, and I'm so excited that we'll get to talk to Malika Andrews soon, who broke it all down for everyone, reports of anger, and it the only person attributed, directly because he was the one everyone heard, specifically Marcus Smart, which that doesn't, surprise a lot of people.
Nope.
But like things possibly thrown around, things being said, this happens in locker rooms, especially when the stakes are raised this high. I am not surprised. I would be more worried if the Celtics were just cool after that, because what happened the first two games, especially in the second half, was not cool at all.
It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. And yeah, no one is surprised that it was Marcus Smart in this bunch. We talked yesterday about the comparison, who the juice guy is in the Celtics locker room, a la Jimmy Butler on the Miami Heat side. And we said Marcus Smart, personality-wise and what he brings to that situation, is probably closer to that model. Jason Tatum, one of his teammates, was asked about the loud noises heard in the locker room. Here's what he had to say.
We 0-2. We frustrated. But, that's team sports. You're not supposed to be happy we down 0-2. But nothing out the ordinary. Just talking about the game. It's cool. Got to get ready for the next one.
And I think he mentioned it there, Chiney, as you just did, and it's worth noting, this is the love language of athletics at times, and people used to always misattribute this is how guys work out problems. They yell and they scream and they get in fights and work it out. Now, this is how athletes work out problems, because you play as they've talked about, high effort, high intensity, high stakes sports, athletics, where you're expected to go out there and play with all this unbridled energy at certain times. And so it's understandable that in key pressure situations, you would have these kind of emotions spill over into the locker room when things did go careening off a cliff as quickly as they did for the Celtics.
Yeah. You want me to take you behind the scenes of what really makes them mad here?
Oh, yeah.
And it's obvious, but it's I think people don't understand how obvious it is and what's behind it. The zone. Miami Heat are playing a zone defense. How far did you play basketball? What were your hopes and dreams?
Not very far. I did win a rec championship my sophomore year of high school. So
hey, but that's far enough to know that don't you hate it when the team you're going up against plays a zone?
And listen, as Bomani Jones has famously said time and time again, our colleague that you can hear on the right time wherever you get your podcast, zone is for cowards.
And don't we have petitions of parents going around saying, hey, when you're in youth sports, playing zones don't help your kids develop, right?
Yeah, you need to go out there and learn to check somebody.
Exactly. That added factor of them losing to a team, obviously, that has overperformed and shown competitive will, but also a team that has used the zone defense. That's what really is that second dagger. No one likes playing against the zone. At the professional level, when a team is playing a zone, you're like, oh, they disrespect us. They think we can't shoot. There's two ways to beat a zone: shooting from the perimeter and also on the, getting someone on the free throw line. There are a lot of weak spots. And one of the biggest is also rebounding. This plays to all of the Boston Celtics insecurities. But as professionals, this never really is employed because it's supposed to be easy to get rid of it. So this is another factor. It's not just playing a zone. It's the fact that the Celtics can't get past the zone. And that's something that we all expect to happen. And I'll just give you the nuggets here because I found out early on SportsCenter. In the first half, the Miami Heat ran 4 plays with zone defense. In the second half, they ran 25 plays with zone defense. And the Boston Celtics went 5 for 15. So when your team is losing, it's one thing to be mad. When your team is also going down 0-2, in the Eastern Conference Finals, it's another thing to be mad. But when your team is losing with all of that and on top, it's a zone, and our perception of a zone is this is not professional caliber basketball, but this is gimmicky type of defense. Shout out to Eric Spoelstra for doing whatever it takes. It's not a normal zone where you have just guards at the top. He switches things around, and that's what's also really under their skin. That's one of our worst things. Like, we hate that in hoops, and I'm not surprised that it creates friction on top of that in the locker room.
Chiney Ogwumike Jr. here on ESPN Radio, and I'm with you. It's like seeing the triple option when you're growing up in football. It's like, just play me straight up. That's all I want in this situation. Although you mentioned Eric Spoelstra, who probably, again, criminally underrated in the way we talk about coaches overall in the NBA, said it wasn't scheme that took over in the third quarter for them.
I have to look at the first half. There wasn't much that we liked about what we were doing defensively, man or zone. I know everybody wants to talk about a scheme. For us, it's disposition, it's effort, making tough plays, making multiple efforts, regardless of the scheme. And we were more committed there in the second half.
And all that does apply, but it's still also the scheme. You're right. There is a certain quota of disrespect that's being met with this.
Look, he's saying it's not the scheme. We're not talking about it because it's working really well for us. But it's not the scheme. It's really our competitive will. We're going to keep doing the zone until they can show they beat us. That's what I heard right there.
Well, you know what it is? It comes down to, Chiney.
What is it?
They didn't beat him with a zone or anything like that. It was heat culture.
Oh, gosh. And I learned what that was yesterday.
Like I say, got
in
a
one
free
word,
lesson. Spicy heat culture in all of this. So, Chiney, and I ask you this because you mentioned all the ways that you traditionally beat zone, and the Boston Celtics are a professional basketball team. I have a feeling that, like you, they know the things that go into that. Brad Stevens is lauded as one of the smartest coaches in the NBA, and we talked about this yesterday with Gary Washburn. How much could the return of someone like Gordon Hayward help when you're battling something like this?
Oh, everything. Because sometimes you just feel like you're stuck on autopilot, right? And you don't know how to create that solution. And bringing in someone that has seen things from a different lens, has not been there, and now he's like, oh, good. Like, it just is a mental relief. And so for Gordon Hayward to potentially come back, I think that's the burst of freshness that will provide energy for them to just feel a little different or feel a little bit more at home. And the stats work. When Gordon Hayward plays well, the Celtics have an even higher chance of winning. I know that sounds obvious, but if he hits that 20-point mark, they virtually don't lose. So if that happens, that could be a huge game changer for them.
Yeah, and we understand that's still an if at this point. Obviously seems like something that's going to be a game-by-game decision. But right now, you need something because in just as much of this, and I'm sure when we talk to Malika, these things also tend to get worked out quickly when you talk about this kind of locker room drama and people yelling and screaming in this, and all of it's heightened by the fact that we're in a bubble. And I feel like anytime you can hear the yelling outside of the locker room, people all of a sudden really perk their ears up. Like, no, that's just how the conversations happen. You're just lucky enough to get to hear a little bit of it this time around because of the proximity, because of the situation we're at in the bubble. This is just the love language of sports added again, and they got to work through a couple of these problems right now, and I have a feeling they will.
Sometimes that's the only way you can understand things. You're so caught up in playing. You're doing the same thing every day. You're not traveling, and you're on the court. You're dealing with things. You're strategizing with your coach. And then afterward, it just feels good to take the pressure off, as long as it's done safely, right? Like, don't throw. Yeah. And
you do know that in this, no one in that locker room is surprised that this reaction came from Marcus Smart, right? Like,
yep.
If we know that, and everyone watching knows that, I'm damn sure his teammates all know that and are pretty used to, hey, this is just how the reaction is going to be because he cares so much, because he's all the things that we love on the court here.
Yeah, if you don't react that way, then you don't want to compete. So I'm glad to hear that this happened, because hopefully that shows how much this matters to them, and all they have to do is translate that same energy to the court.
Straight Talk Wireless.
We don't want to sweep, right?
Listen, selfishly at this point, Chiney, I'll tell you exactly where I'm at. Heat Lakers finals. It's all I want is LeBron James to get to stare down Pat Riley and the franchise that he left behind a few years ago. So that is where my eyes are on at this point. So sweep or not, I don't care how we get there. I have my eyes trained on this as the desirable finals outcome.
I'm win-win. I wouldn't be mad at the storied franchises, obviously Boston, LA. So that's kind of cool too. The new age version of that.
It would be a cool rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals a few years ago, the Celtics and that Cavaliers team led by LeBron, where these young dudes really cut their teeth in a Kyrie-less team at that point in the season. So Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. Plenty more on that. We will get our dose of heat culture with Stu Gotts in about 15 minutes and check inside the bubble with Malika Andrews after that. But coming up next, 2 reasons why the Browns and Baker Mayfield are going in the right direction, and 1 reason why Joe Burrow is even better than he's getting credit for now. That's next. It's Chiney Ogwumike Jr. on ESPN Radio.
Coming up Monday, reacting to all the action in the NFL from week 2 and my thoughts on the NBA playoffs, including the Lakers.